Hey y'all, it's Stacy. Welcome back to the kitchen. Let's jump right in. I'm gonna show you today how to make my easy Swiss steak. Now this isn't necessarily a quick and easy recipe, but the process is easy. Let me show you what I mean by that. We're gonna start by talking about our beef here. I've got 1.5 pounds of what you're gonna find in the grocery store probably called cube steak. It's called cube steak because of the pattern that the machine that this is run through to tenderize. When it does that, it cuts the meat into tiny little cubes. So oftentimes it's labeled as cube steak in the grocery store. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna season this first. I like to use an all-purpose seasoning, a seasoning salt. You could even use my y'all salt for that. If you want the recipe for that, head over to the website and just search for y'all salt. I am just sprinkling this on each side, and then I'm gonna coat it in a little all-purpose flour. I've got about 1/3 cup here in a pie plate here. While I'm doing this, let me point something out here. So when I got this out of the package this morning, you can see that there's a little bit of a gray area here. This does not mean that your meat is bad. All it is it's a reaction. There's a protein in beef called myoglobin. When myoglobin is exposed to oxygen, it sometimes changes color. If you find a little gray spot like this, it's perfectly fine to use, so don't let that bother you. All right, so I've got this seasoned. I'm gonna put it in a little all-purpose flour here. In my skillet here, I've got about 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. We're gonna sear these about 4 minutes on each side to get a nice golden coating on it, and then we're gonna move on with our next steps. All right, now that we got a nice sear and some pretty browning on our beef here, we're gonna work on our gravy. To this, I'm going to add about 2 cups of beef broth. Add that slowly here. I'm also adding, this is a 0.87 or about 1 ounce pack of brown gravy mix that we're gonna sprinkle in here and kind of whisk this together. Now I get the question sometimes, why is it called Swiss steak? Well, we talked about why it's called cube steak. Well, it's called Swiss steak actually because sometimes that process of tenderization is called Swissing. It actually has nothing to do with Switzerland. To this, I'm going to add, this is a 14.5 ounce can of diced tomatoes, and I'm adding the tomatoes and the juice that's in there. Some people like to add carrots, some other vegetables, celery, onions. You can certainly do that. In terms of making this easy, I find that the flavor is great without it, but you can certainly add those. We're gonna bring this to a boil. Once we've done that, we're gonna add our beef right back into our gravy here. Once that's done, we're gonna cover this and allow it to simmer over low. The exact time that it's gonna need to cook is gonna vary based on your beef. Sometimes that takes 45 minutes, sometimes it takes closer to an hour. The goal here is that we want it to be nice and tender. I've got this done here. You can see just how beautiful that gravy thickened up. Amazing flavor. Serve this over mashed potatoes, over rice, all by itself. It's a great meal that when you've got a little extra time to cook, but it's pretty much hands-off once you add that gravy and put the beef back in there. Folks, you can find this full recipe by heading over to the website at southernbite.com. Just visit the Simply Southern TV tab right at the top. Y'all enjoy.
Mary, I'm glad that Stacy cleared up the mystery about the names cubed steak and Swiss steak.
And it's also important for folks to know that, as he said, just because the meat has a little discoloration, there's nothing wrong with it.
Now, I like to peruse the comments on southernbite.com before we air these segments. It's unanimous that Swiss steak is delicious, and although other sides were mentioned, the consensus seems to be that mashed potatoes are the perfect side.
Taters and beef, they're perfect together. And our thanks to the Alabama Cattlemen's Association for sponsoring this delicious beef recipe.
And thanks to all of you for watching Simply Southern today. We hope you'll be back with us next week when we'll visit a farm that spends the entire year growing our food.
And that farm is proof that there's always something in season in Alabama. And our friends from Sweet Grown Alabama will join us next week to tell us what those products are for this time of year. I'm Mary Wilson.
And I'm Kevin Worthington. Come on back and be with us again next time.
Simply Southern is produced by the Alabama Farmers Federation and made possible with the support of these sponsors.